You didn't betray anyone. You didn't lie. You didn't cheat. You didn't do anything wrong. And yet, somehow, people who used to be in your corner started pulling away. The energy shifted. The room changed when you walked in. Support that used to feel solid started feeling conditional. And the worst part? Nobody told you why. That silence is not an accident. And once you understand the real mechanism behind why people turn against you, not the surface reasons, not the excuses they give, you're going to see something that cannot be unseen. Because the truth is, most of the time, it has nothing to do with what you did. It has everything to do with what you became. Here's a pattern that plays out constantly in every culture, at every level of society. Someone is struggling. They're in the middle of difficulty, financial, emotional, professional, personal. And in that state of struggle, they're surrounded. People check in. People offer help. People feel comfortable around them. The struggling person is easy to love because they're not threatening anyone. Then something shifts. That person starts growing. They start figuring things out. The business gets traction. The mindset changes. The body changes. The relationship improves. The confidence arrives. And the people who were there during the struggle start to leave, not all at once, gradually, quietly, with perfectly reasonable excuses. They changed. They're not the same person anymore. They got too big for their boots. I don't know. Something just feels different. And here's what's fascinating about all of those statements. They're all true, and not one of them is the real reason. The real reason is something much older than language, much deeper than personal history, something wired into human social architecture that almost no one ever talks about honestly. And it starts with a question nobody asks. What does your growth cost the people around you? There's a concept in evolutionary psychology called the tall poppy syndrome. If you've never heard of it, here's the image. In a field of poppies, the ones that grow tallest above the others get cut down first. Not the weak ones, the strong ones. It's used to describe the social tendency to resent, criticize, or actively undermine people who stand out above the group. Not because they did something wrong, because they grew. But here's what most explanations of tall poppy syndrome miss entirely. The cutting isn't random. It's precise. The people who turn against you are almost never strangers. They're not your enemies. They're not people who had no reason to support you. They're people who had a very specific relationship with your former self and your growth, your real, undeniable, visible growth, did something to that relationship that they never consciously agreed to. It changed the contract. The unspoken, invisible, never discussed contract that holds most human relationships together. And when that contract breaks, not because anyone cheated, not because anyone lied, but simply because one person grew faster than the other was prepared for, the relationship doesn't just become uncomfortable, it becomes dangerous for them. And that's when the turning begins. Let's go beneath the surface. In social psychology, there's a well-documented phenomenon called social identity threat. The theory, developed largely by Henri Tadgeful and John Turner, proposes that human beings derive a significant portion of their self-worth not from who they are individually, but from the groups they belong to and the people they associate with. In other words, part of your identity is defined by your relationships. And here's where it gets complicated. When you're in a relationship, friendship, family, romantic, professional, both people implicitly build a shared identity narrative, a story about who you both are, where you both stand, what you're both capable of. That narrative doesn't need to be spoken. In fact, it almost never is. It lives in the background of every interaction, shaping what topics feel safe, what comparisons feel comfortable, what futures feel possible. Now here's the critical part. When you grow, when you genuinely, visibly, undeniably level up in some domain that matters to that other person, you don't just change yourself, You rewrite the shared narrative. And for the other person, that rewriting can feel like an attack. Not consciously. They would never frame it that way. But neurologically, emotionally, in the deep architecture of how they understand themselves in relation to you, your growth lands as a threat to their identity. Researcher Abraham Tesser called this the self-evaluation maintenance model. His research showed that people respond very differently to a close friend's success depending on two factors. One, how relevant the domain of success is to their own sense of self-worth. Two, how psychologically close the person is to them. When someone you consider a peer, someone in your circle, your level, your world, succeeds in a domain you care about, it doesn't feel inspiring. It feels destabilizing. And the more you care about that domain and the closer a person is to you, the more destabilizing it becomes. Tesser found that people facing this kind of self-evaluation threat tend to respond in one of two ways. They either increase their own performance in that domain, they get motivated, they compete, they rise, or they psychologically distance themselves from you. They stop seeing you as a peer. They start reframing the relationship. They begin to find subtle ways to diminish your achievement. They just got lucky. They had advantages. It came easy for them. Not because these things are true, but because the alternative is sitting with something deeply uncomfortable, that you grew and they didn't. But there's a third response that Tesser's original model didn't fully capture, and it's the one that actually explains why people don't just drift away, but actively turn. Neuroscientist Naomi Eisenberger's research on social pain showed that social exclusion and rejection activate the same neural circuitry as physical pain, the anterior cingulate cortex, the part of the brain that processes a hurt of a broken bone. Lights up identically when someone experiences social rejection or the loss of a valued relationship. What this means is, when your growth effectively dismantles a shared narrative, when it makes the other person feel left behind, irrelevant, or exposed, their brain doesn't just feel disappointed. It feels hurt. And hurt people, unless they have extraordinary self-awareness, don't tend to sit with that pain quietly. They externalize it. They rewrite the story. In the new version of the story, you're not someone who grew. You're someone who changed in the negative sense. You're someone who got arrogant, who forgot where they came from, who thinks they're better now. This isn't a conscious lie. It's a psychological defense mechanism, a way of restoring a sense of justice to a situation that feels, to them, fundamentally unfair. And once that new story is written, the turning has already happened. Everything you do after that point will be filtered through it. Let's make this concrete. Example 1. The friend who was there when you were broken. There's a specific type of friendship that forms during hardship. When you were at your lowest, grieving, broke, lost, stuck, someone showed up. They sat with you. They understood you. And a deep bond formed in that shared darkness. Those friendships are real. They're not fake. The love is genuine. But here's what rarely gets acknowledged. That friendship also formed an implicit identity for both people. You were the one who was struggling. They were the one who was strong enough to help. That dynamic, helper and helped, became the invisible architecture of the relationship. Then you healed. You grew. You stopped needing to be carried. And suddenly the architecture has no foundation. For you, the growth feels like liberation. For them, it can feel like abandonment, or worse, like a kind of erasure. The version of you that needed them is gone. And with it, the version of themselves that felt most significant. This is why some of the fiercest opposition to your growth comes from people who genuinely love you. They're not trying to hold you back. They're trying to hold on. Example 2, the colleague who becomes your competitor overnight. You've been at the same level as someone for years. Same title, same salary range, roughly the same trajectory. There's a comfortable equilibrium, an unspoken sense of we're in this together. Then you get promoted, or you land a major win, or your work starts getting noticed in ways that theirs isn't. Almost immediately, not always openly, but palpably, something shifts. Suddenly your ideas get questioned in meetings more than before. Suddenly there are small omissions that affect your projects. Suddenly there are comments, framed as jokes that have an edge to them. You didn't do anything wrong. You did something right. But in a system where resources, recognition, advancement, visibility are finite, your ascent recalibrated the map. And now you're not a peer. You're a benchmark. And benchmarks make people feel measured. Nobody likes feeling measured. Example 3, the family system that needed you small. Every family system has a homeostasis, a set of roles that keep the system in balance. The responsible one, the troubled one, the talented one, the reliable one. Those roles aren't chosen consciously. They're assigned slowly through thousands of micro-interactions over years, and the system unconsciously works to maintain them. When you step outside your assigned role, when you grow beyond what the system had allocated for you, you don't just disrupt your own life, you destabilize the entire system. The sibling who was a successful one now has competition for a title they've held since childhood. The parent whose sense of significance was tied to guiding you now has less to offer. The relative who defined themselves partly by the contrast with your struggles now finds that contrast dissolving. None of these people are villains. They're people whose sense of self is entangled with a version of you that no longer exists. And they will, often without realizing it, attempt to restore the old version through criticism, through doubt, through the subtle but persistent message that you're getting above yourself. It's not cruelty. It's a system trying to survive. Example 4, the partner who fell in love with your potential, not your power. This one is perhaps the most painful. Some relationships begin when one person is in ascent and the other feels secure in their position as a more stable, more established, more put-together one. There's love there, real love, but there's also a dynamic. As the ascending partner grows in confidence and achievement, in their sense of self, the dynamic shifts. The balance of power, of need, of dependence, quietly redistributes. And for the partner who built part of their identity around being the anchor, the provider, the wise one, that redistribution doesn't just feel unfair. It can feel like a kind of loss. They didn't sign up for an equal. They signed up for someone who needed them. When you stop needing them the way you used to, the relationship reveals what was actually built on. And sometimes, what was built on can't hold the weight of who you become. Here's the thing that nobody tells you. The people who turn against you when you grow are not your enemies. They are people who loved a version of you, and that version is gone. The philosopher Heraclitus said that you cannot step into the same river twice, because by the time you step in again, both you and the river have changed. Human relationships have the same problem. We fall in love with a person, a friendship, a dynamic, and then we try to freeze it. We want the person to stay the same. Not because we're controlling, because change is loss. Every time you grow, something dies. The old version of you, the person who needed the things you no longer need, the person who struggled with the things that now come easily. And the people who were in relationship with that old version are, in a very real sense, grieving. They're grieving you. The tragedy is that nobody has language for this. There's no ritual for mourning a living person who changed. There's no ceremony for the grief of watching someone you love grow beyond the world you shared. So it comes out sideways, as resentment, as criticism, as distance, as a slow, quiet turning that leaves you wondering what you did wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. You did something irreversible. But here's where the philosophy gets genuinely liberating. The German poet Rainer Maria Rilke wrote that we must live the questions rather than rush toward answers. Applied here, the question isn't, how do I make them comfortable with my growth? You can't, and trying to will cost you the growth itself. The real question, the one that cuts through all of it, is this: are you willing to be misunderstood by people who knew an older version of you in order to become who you are actually meant to be? Because that is the price. Not always, not with everyone, but often enough that you need to be prepared for it. The people who are meant to stay will recalibrate. They'll grieve the old version of you and fall in love with the new one. It will take time. It will require honesty on both sides. But it's possible the people who can't recalibrate will leave, or they'll turn. And as devastating as that feels in the moment, there is information in that leaving. It tells you who was in relationship with you and who was in relationship with the role you played. One of those is a relationship. The other is a costume someone else needed you to wear, and you have outgrown the costume. You've been carrying a question you couldn't quite articulate. Why did they turn? What did I do? What changed? Now you have an answer. You changed, not in the way they framed it, not arrogant, not ungrateful, not too big for your boots. You just grew, the way humans are supposed to grow, the way every living thing that is healthy and fed intended to eventually grows. And some people, the ones whose sense of self was woven too tightly into who you used to be, experience that growth as a rupture. Here's what I want you to hold on to. You are not responsible for managing other people's identities. You are not responsible for staying small so that others don't have to face something uncomfortable in themselves. You are not responsible for suppressing your evolution to maintain a dynamic that was never really about you. You are responsible for one thing: becoming, honestly, fully without apology, who you are. That path will cost you some relationships. It already has, and the grief of those losses is real. Don't let anyone tell you it isn't. But on that same path, as you grow, as you shed the roles that were never yours, as you stop performing the version of yourself that other people required, you'll find something that most people spend their entire lives searching for. People who love you for who you are right now, not for who you were, not for the role you play, not for what your presence does for their self-image. Just you, the current version, in progress, still becoming. Those people exist, but they can only find you if you stop hiding inside the version of yourself that everyone else was comfortable with. So grow, even when it costs you, especially when it costs you, because everything you leave behind on that path, every relationship that couldn't hold the weight of who you're becoming, is making room for the ones that can.